So if you can imagine, I guarantee, since there's no baffling inside this guy, all this nonsense is actually getting sucked up back into the engine. The same color as these cigarette stains is due to how bad the inside of this guy is. Hey, real quick before we start this video, a lot of you guys have been asking for team shirts. Finally, Autohaus has t-shirts, so it would really help out a lot if you supported the shop, got some merch, some shirts, stickers, support the media work, support me and my dog. Check out that merch store so I don't starve you guys. All right, R32 GTR. Got another Skyline in the shop. Question is, how much of a headache is it going to be? We have a huge stack of parts over on my new toolbox to install. This car is also going to receive a serious tune-up and refresh. Let's go over some of the unfortunate headaches I've found so far with this guy. I don't see very many white R32s. Yeah, this guy's definitely got that Mines vibe to it with the white color. Isn't that right, Dexter? Alright, so what do we got? Vehicle inspection. We're doing a full Hikis delete from SP Tech. That means all the lines are coming out. I think I gotta modify the power steering pump in this guy too. We're going to replace every single rear knuckle bushing, which I absolutely recommend if you're doing a Hikis delete, since the knuckles have to come out anyway. As beautiful as these cars are, we forget they're almost 30 years old now, which means all that rubber's 30 years old and probably deteriorated or gone by this point as well. Serious tune-up, all the fluids including oil, transmission, transfer case, front and rear diff, fuel filter. We're also going to do a PRP R35 coil pack conversion on this car. The catch can is a mess. We got to figure that out, and I'll show you guys in a second. Alright, so one of the things on the owner's list was to figure out a catch can and hose situation first of all. You can tell there's some JDM nonsense on here. In the owner's own words, he says it looks like dirty cigarette stains. We were debating on keeping this catch can, but I'm gonna show you this dipstick. So first of all, before I pull that dipstick out, I can guarantee there's like no baffling, no nothing in here, which means this is pretty much useless. No other way to put it. Oh, there we go, perfect. Yeah, you can see all the solid chunks. It looks like this dipstick tube's actually rusting too, but all this nonsense, it was far worse the first time I pulled this dipstick out. Alright, so if you can imagine, I guarantee, since there's no baffling inside this guy, all this nonsense, since this is routed as a return style system, is actually getting sucked up back into the engine. And the same color as these cigarette stains is due to how bad the inside of this guy is. So I'm going to recommend the owner completely get rid of this system. In the interim, I think I'm going to temporarily run this as an open to atmosphere system. So I think we're just going to leave a breather filter on this side and then just one line right here and cap off that one. So these two will go here. And that'll only be temporary until the owner decides what new catch can system he wants to run. Catch can is absolutely necessary for RB engines. As part of the vehicle inspection, let's see some other things we found. On the road test, I noticed there was a low and soft brake pedal. This car sits in storage a lot of the time, so I wasn't too surprised. I was like, oh, well, it probably needs the brakes bled. But hopefully you guys can see it, but this brake master cylinder, the rear seal is actually leaking, and it's eating the paint off the brake booster. Again, hard to see, but these fittings, at least that fitting right there, and then on top right here, were wet. See that red stuff? I've seen nonsense in the past where people have tried to put like pipe dope or whatever nonsense to try to seal hydraulic fittings, but I think besides the rear seal on the brake master leaking, there's rubber seals on each end to seal this reservoir. I believe those are leaking too, because one way you can tell if you like move this guy, you can kind of see the fluid seep out. So yeah, this whole assembly definitely needs to be replaced. That'll also solve the low and soft brake pedal. Yeah, tough to see, but the power steering and alternator belts are severely cracked. Being pit road or pit work, these were probably the belts that this car came with in Japan. For some reason, someone's replaced the AC belt already with like a US belt, so that's kind of weird. But that's not the only thing that's kind of weird on this car. The cooling fan blades, you can see they're starting to crack, which is pretty normal for this vintage of car. Let's see. Oh, there's definitely a lot of nonsense with the vacuum lines too. So this car, as with many cars of this era, have a bunch of nonsense. I'll kind of show you on the inside. Yeah, what do we got? We got this Greddy something or other. We got this additional Greddy something or other. We got this Blitz something or other. And I think there's at least one more something or other in here that the car probably doesn't need and is probably hurting the engine right now, unfortunately. Awesome confetti seats though, by the way. Same, I believe the same confetti seats as the passenger seat in my Corolla. But yeah, we got this Blitz SPC. God knows what it does, but it's causing some nonsense because if we look, our fuel pressure regulator vacuum line has been teed into twice by these two T's that, again, similar nonsense to this. And if you look, all these vacuum lines are like loose on these T's. So I imagine there's, unfortunately, a gang of vacuum leaks on here. Same thing, there's this aftermarket vacuum signal that goes to one of those nonsense things inside. And, you know, similar in the vein of nonsense, there you can see there's a bolt that plugs up the other end of this vacuum line. Hooray. Yeah, HKS pod filters, these have definitely seen better days. I'm a little bit worried because I know when these deteriorate, sometimes the phone can break apart. Hopefully they don't get sucked in, so I'm gonna recommend the owner actually change out these foam pods. Although really cool Greddy oil cooler relocation type kit. You guys probably know it is a nightmare to get to the oil filter on these engines. Plus when you take the oil filter off, it dumps oil all over the front diff and makes a mess. So obviously this makes changing the oil filter a lot easier. One thing I really liked about this kit, again, sorry, tough to see, but you can see the oil cooler peeking out behind this shield. So that oil cooler actually mounts this way in there and gets fed direct air through that vent. Really nice. I like functional stuff. So yeah, that should be majority of the big issues on the top side. Why don't we lift up the car and take a look underneath? I absolutely love these Advan wheels, by the way. This silver on white, so classy. Love it. All right, let's take a look. What we got? The right axle, the inner and the outer CV boot torn completely open. Really obvious on any car if you see grease spraying out on the exterior of like everything else. You can tell that boot's either torn or got a leak somewhere. Yeah, one obvious clue, again, before I even look at the boot, I can see the spatter up there on the subframe, which tells me, yeah, probably something's up with the boot. So this inside boot's torn as well. Our front diff cover is leaking. Now, sometimes this can be tricky because, again, in the oil filter on the factory location dumps oil on top of this diff cover. But in this case, we see the top is dry. When I smelled this, smelled gear oil. So yeah, this front cover has to come off and get resealed. The service manual way to actually take out that axle is actually to take the cover off and push the axle out from inside the diff. So we're gonna try to do this all in one shot. Replace both the boots, reseal the front diff cover. You can see that CV boot on the right side is also coating the inside of this wheel too. All right, definitely got a bundle of nonsense here, right? What in the world is this? So, yeah, first thing I noticed, this clutch line, if you see it's got this little tab, it's supposed to go inside here to prevent the clutch line from basically loosening itself up. So I was like, well, maybe some dum-dum just installed this wrong. But that is almost kind of the case if we look at the rest of the system. So factory, these cars came with a clutch damper for the hydraulics. If I'm not mistaken, it's so when you completely dump the clutch, it doesn't let you actually dump the clutch. It dampens the fluid so that if you decide to dump the clutch, it doesn't shock the rest of the drivetrain. In short, someone's done a very ghetto clutch damper delete. And so they've made this convoluted system and cut the line right here. So it goes straight from the clutch master out to here and then straight to this soft line. Instead of taking this off and essentially doing it the proper way, you get this nonsense. So the clutch fluid should be flushed in this car anyway. It looks dark and super discolored. If the owner approves that, I'm hoping we can get rid of this and come up with a better solution as well. We did the trans fluid. The owner was recommended shockproof heavy, so we have shockproof heavy in the trans, the front diff when we do it, and then shockproof heavy in the rear diff. The transfer case, we have Amsoil ATF, so the transfer case takes ATF, not gear oil. Our Atessa actuator was leaking, so not bad, we just took this guy off and resealed it. I guess amazing in itself, this has still got the factory exhaust system on here. I remember doing a road test with the customer, we turned it on, and I was like, it's quiet, and the owner smiled, he was like, yeah, quiet, huh? So yeah, as you can tell, definitely some issues and definitely a lot of nonsense with this vehicle. I've heard somewhere in the past, the thinking behind like the nonsense in this car, these cars weren't worth a lot of money at one point, which meant that if the repairs outweighed the cost of the car, people usually Mickey Mouse the cars together. What that also meant is that cheap performance cars meant all the little kids threw every single ricer mod that they could on these cars. And both stories kind of resonate with this car. Not to take too much credit away from the car because I think it's a great, I want to say rust-free example. The chassis is pretty much unmolested, so this is actually a great base. But definitely a lot of undoing from the era when this car was not worth a lot of money back in Japan. So yeah, I'm really hoping we can do this car justice and also do the owner justice, help out the owner, get this car back to the legendary Godzilla status that this car deserves. Questions, comments, help me out on that catch can setup. Make sure to leave it in the description below. Appreciate all the support, you guys, and I'll catch you guys next time.